Welcome to the Plymouth Select Board, Tuesday, April 11th. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. The selectmen have been in executive session since 4:30, and now we will move on to our agenda for open session. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing. Transfer of all alcohol restaurant license Stack Shack LLC, doing business as Stack Shack. Yep. Put your mic on.
In accordance with Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws as amended, notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held at the Plymouth Town Hall, 26 Court Street on Tuesday, April 25th, 2023, at 6 p.m. to consider the application for a transfer of a seasonal all alcohol license from Stack Shack LLC, doing business as Stack Shack, 55 Loring Boulevard, Joseph P. Genetti, manager, to P&JV Waterfront Incorporated, doing business as 3V Restaurant Sandbar, 55 Loring Boulevard, Gina Viscarello Abanesi, manager. Description of the premises is as follows. Alcohol and concessions will be served out of a 136 to 160 square foot mobile kitchen on a lot in Cottage Park Marina. Picnic tables will be in the seating area, which will be roped off with signs forbidding removal of alcoholic beverages. Anyone wishing to be heard on this matter should plan to attend this meeting. I now declare this hearing open. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this license hearing? Anyone in opposition? We'll bring it back to the board.
Second.
Motion to approve by Mr. Blitzer, seconded by Mr. Quintal. All those in favor? Unanimous. The next public hearing is alteration of premises, South Shore Restaurant Group, doing business as East Bay Pine Hills, 54 Clubhouse Drive, James March, the manager.
In accordance with Chapter 138 of the Massachusetts General Laws as amended, notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held at the Plymouth Town Hall, 26 Court Street on Tuesday, April 11th, 2023 at 6:02 p.m. to consider the application for an alteration of premises for South Shore Restaurant Group, doing business as East Bay Grill, Pine Hills, holder of an annual alcohol restaurant license, 54 Clubhouse Drive, James March, manager. Description of the premises is as follows. A two-story mixed-use building with uses including dining rooms and kitchens, men's and women's locker rooms and lounges, a pro shop, offices, and electric golf cart storage. Included for dining are 2 rooms, pavilion and grill room. Applicant seeks to remove third meeting room, outdoor terrace, 2 on-course snack bars, and a service of all alcohol beverages from beverage carts on the grounds of the 2 golf courses, as well as applicant seeks to add an outside tented area adjacent to the clubhouse. Is there any more questions? It gives the number. Oh, that's for us.
Okay. Would anyone like to speak on this? In opposition? In favor? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mahoney, seconded by Mr. Helm. Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. You're abstaining? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Quintal for and Mr. Quintal abstaining. Okay, next is public comment. Do we have anyone in public comment? Oh. Push the
Can you-
microphone.
Steve Lyden, it was brought up a while back about the Hedges Pond Preserve, and I think the town owns that property. And there was 4 cottages that were supposed to be torn down, and the building inspector who said that they were unsafe and now they're hazardous. I know the good weather's coming and people are going to be up there. Is there any reason why these buildings haven't been torn down, and do we know when this is going to happen? Thank you.
Well, I bet you the town manager might have answers for that.
Yeah, sure, happy to provide an update. So as I mentioned in the past, the 4 cabins have been tested for hazardous materials. They've all tested positive for lead. This lead is what we believe is leaching into the soil. We've also tested the Great Hall as well. Fortunately, I don't believe that has tested positive for lead. I've recently applied to CPC for $17,000 so that we can test the soil for lead and start the process of tearing those buildings down. I would expect, assuming CPC provides that $17,000 worth of funding, we'll have to go to the fall town meeting to seek a larger sum of money for the actual demolition and disposal of the product. So waiting to hear back from the CPC as to whether or not they'll entertain that application.
Any questions? Mr. Mahoney, can you follow up with that at your CPC meeting?
Yes, Madam Chair, there hasn't been a meeting in a few weeks, so as soon as there is a next regularly scheduled meeting, I will certainly communicate that to yourself, the rest of the board, and the town manager, and certainly if the town manager is available, who knows, maybe he'll be inclined to attend the meeting. But we are still, I thought we met a couple of weeks ago, and
Supposed
at
to
the
have.
second part of the summit
Yeah. Do we
to
have-
clarify and, agree to some of these issues and solutions moving forward.
Derek, do we have any dates for that second part?
I haven't been invited to an additional meeting. Like I said, I did apply last week for $17,000. In my email, I had suggested to all the CPC members that I'd be happy to come before the committee and present this request. The town clerk has informed me, we believe CPC may be meeting this Thursday.
Yes, they're posted for Thursday, and Hedges, the cabins is on our agenda.
Okay, so it's news to me. I wasn't aware that they were actually having the discussion. 4:30, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
The last time I checked my email, there was no update there, so this is recent news. All right, thank you.
Okay. Just, Derek, if we could have a Plan B, just in case the application goes nowhere, and if our building department is saying that we have to take down those buildings because it's a safety hazard, then we need to address those immediately.
Agreed.
All right. Any public comment? Could you please say your name? For the
Good evening, John Magnarelli, 9 Mariners Way. It seems like every time there's a planning board, select board, zoning board meeting, the issue of water comes up, whether it's quality or quantity. At the January 10th meeting of the select board, at the end of the meeting, Mr. Mahoney came up with a suggestion that maybe it's time to put a temporary moratorium on building. And Madam Chairwoman, that you kind of jumped on it and said, well, maybe we should have a meeting between the select board and the planning board and solicit public comment and, see what the people think and see what you guys think. And I was just wondering, have we moved forward on that forum at all, or where are we, or is it still viable?
I did reach out to Mr. Grandy, and I haven't, I may have heard back, but we have had one meeting, so could we set up that second meeting?
I have talked to Mr. Harmon, our planning director, and he's trying to organize a joint meeting with the planning board and select board in the month of May.
Oh, that's fantastic,
Can
thank
it
you.
be before May 16th? Just saying. And you're right, I know that Mr. Quintal and I have been trying to move forward with a moratorium for 3 years, and it's never really kind of
Okay.
gotten anywhere, but now I think there are some valid reasons out there. We have plenty of water, we just don't have any way to move it,
Move it, exactly.
so
All right, thank you very much.
you're welcome. Okay, any more public comments? No. We have a license, administrative notes, and permits. Does anyone have any issues with anything in those categories? And if not, I'd like to see them moved as a group.
Through the chair to the town manager. Mr. Brindisi, I was just looking for an explanation on my packet, it says admin note number 2, I believe. It's now technically number 1. But approve and execute the annual town meeting proposed town charter ballot question language. And I just wonder if you could provide an explanation there on that one. Thank you.
Sure. So our town clerk's here this evening. She's been working very closely with town council on drafting the 2 questions that are before you this evening. Both of these questions, they articulate to the voter what voting no means on the charter question and what a yes vote would mean on the charter question. There was some confusion with some charter commission members who thought that this was more or less a summary of the charter, and it's not. It's a yes/no vote and what that means. The charter commission, under the statute, they have the authority to draft a summary of what the charter entails, and they're working on that summary as well. And as the town clerk pointed out to me, if you think of the red book, when we have state ballot questions, it would be similar to that. So we'll have the yes vote, the no vote, and then a summary of the charter itself.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's on there.
Okay. And will we be able to review those questions before they're put on the ballot?
Yes.
It's in our pack, but it's not on the agenda.
Right.
The agenda item, admin note, the board will vote to approve and execute the 2023 annual town meeting
Right.
proposed town charter ballot question.
No, I mean, once it, yeah, okay,
Right, I was stuck in licenses.
Okay.
I had not moved on to administrative.
gotcha. Anyone? Questions, comments, anything? Do we have a motion?
Move them as presented.
Motion by Mr. Quintal, seconded by Mr. Mahoney. Discussion?
Madam Chair, sorry to interrupt. Are you saying that you're going to be voting as a group for admin notes, licenses, and permits as well?
Yes.
Okay. Just checking. Thank you.
A question, since this is, there is language going on to the ballot, should it not be a separate vote rather than voted en masse? Traditionally, we've voted these separately, just for clarity.
Just a point of clarification, because he's been in with executive session, he hasn't caught up on his email. The Charter Commission has presented their summary to me before the deadline, which is Monday, so I have that in my email. So the ballot will read, shall the town of Plymouth accept the charter? Then it will be a summary, and it's about 451 words. And then it will be if you vote no, if you vote yes, which is in your packet. That's what it will look like. And if you don't need a separate vote, because I just need something that you voted on this according to the Charter 5-1-3, and that puts the yes, no, one statement that I'm looking to do, and the Charter also requires that to be published in the newspaper, which I'll take care of in a couple weeks.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. All right, next is recognition of years for Mr. de Blasio.
Where is Mr. DeBla? Oh, there he is.
I'm hiding.
Barry is hiding this evening. So we wanted to take a moment to recognize Barry's 20 years of service with the town of Plymouth. Unfortunately, Barry, although today was his last official day serving in this capacity, he was unable to be with us physically. So Barry, I don't know if you can see this, but we have a nice going away present for you. It's not cash. So I just wanted to spend a few minutes just talking a little bit about Barry. Again, I know a lot of you guys know Barry over, his years of service and the things he's done for the town, but on a personal level, Barry and I, we had a really good working relationship when I was the assistant town manager. And then that relationship continued when I became the town manager in Upton, and oftentimes I would call Barry and I would ask him for advice. In fact, there was one occasion, I took the recreation director from Upton and we did a site visit down here in Plymouth, and Barry took us all around and kind of gave us really good advice on the things that we could do in Upton. And I always appreciated Barry's friendship in that respect. And then I come back as a town manager and we continue to have that relationship. And and I knew Barry, I think Barry told me on like week 2 of my return last year that he would be retiring in a year, and I appreciate the 1-year notice that he gave us all to prepare for his departure. But I think you guys really know everything Barry has accomplished. I mean, Barry served as a past president of the Mass Rec Association. During that time, he served on the Governor's Task Force for Outdoor Recreation. So when Governor Baker convened a group of individuals, he called on Barry to assist him in thinking about what strategies and policies should the state be thinking about when we think about outdoor recreation during that COVID experience. And so, talking to Barry, I didn't realize that, Barry, it was his idea when he met with the previous town manager to move recreation out of the DPW and into the community resources. When you think about community resources and what it does day in and day out, it focuses on our people. Public Works focuses on our infrastructure. And so, he had the foresight to take recreation that focuses on our people and put that in the appropriate department. So that's going to set the stage for what we plan to do in the future with that department. So, and then Barry and I, we had a conversation today about, growing up in the city, we didn't have ponds, and we didn't have lakes, and we certainly don't have a coastline or beaches, so we relied very heavily on splash pads and public pools. The town only has one splash pad over here at Nelson, and, talking to Barry, realizing that, he was a big advocate of getting that splash pad here, and you go there on a hot summer weekend, and that thing is packed. So I just bringing up some of the achievements Barry has contributed to the town over the years, and we talked about Hedges Pond and, that valuable resource. So, Barry, I wanted to thank you personally for everything you've done for the town in the 20 years. I plan on continuing to keep your cell phone, because I'm sure I'll have lots of questions in the future. And I wish you well, you and your wife, into your retirement. And please, make sure you come back to the town and visit. You have a bunch of friends here, so we all wish you well. So again, Barry, hopefully we'll see you in town to give this to you, but if not, we'll package it up and send it to Foxborough.
Great, thank you so much.
Mr. Mahoney?
Barry, congratulations on your retirement. I certainly enjoyed working with you over the last 10 to 15 years. I know that, you were only a text or a phone call or an email away, and your response 90% of the time was virtually instantaneous. Mr. Brindisi just mentioned Hedges, and we had a conversation about that earlier. I know that you were there from the beginning. You put that roadmap together with respect to the program, and the revolving fund, it made it sustainable, and, and the revenue that it generates from, providing those campers with the opportunity to get down on that site, which is really a phenomenal asset for this community. But, a lot of credit goes to yourself and, certainly to the workers in your department. I know that you're jealous that it looks like Hedges is going to head into another phase here, and you won't be around full-time to participate in that, but I could always
Yes,
patch
I
you
am.
in. I could always patch you into, you know, a CPC meeting if you want to be an informal consultant, okay?
Happy to be there, John.
Okay. All right, Barry. I wish you and the wife the best with everything you do in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Blitzer?
Hey, Barry, it's Charlie Blitzer. How are you?
Charlie.
I just want to just say a couple things about you. You're a class act, a gentleman, a people person, a professional. Those are just some of the words to describe you. I want to thank you for your 20 years of service. As Derek touched on, you've done so much for this town, but there's one thing that I want to bring out that you did, which is very important to our tourism, is the revitalization of Memorial Hall. You know, you've revitalized that place, and I know the last couple of years are the busiest years it's ever had, and it's only going to get busier because of you and the work that you've done down there. So I just wanted to thank you, congratulate you on your retirement, and wish you well in the future. I know you're not done. You're going to be doing something
done.
somewhere. You're not done. You're too young to be done. So, congratulations.
Thank you, Charlie.
Mr. Quintel?
Barry, it's been a pleasure all the years, and reiterate what Charlie and John have already said, and I wish you the very best. And-
Thank you so much.
And we'll probably see you somewhere, I'm sure.
Mr. Helm?
Barry, I've only worked with you for a short period of time, but it's been a very pleasurable time. Your forthcoming nature, your understanding of the history of things around Plymouth under your domain, and your willingness to work with the groups that I've been involved with is really appreciated. You'll definitely be missed, but congratulations.
Thank you so much, Harry.
I guess they're going to save the best for last.
Of course.
Well, we certainly have been on very opposite sides of some issues, but I appreciate your respectfulness, and we always seem to come to the right conclusion somewhere down the road once we finished our own kind of path to get there. So, but I wish you the best of luck, and I'm sure you'll be doing something, hopefully a Plymouth resident maybe. And
Maybe.
we appreciate everything you've done for the rec department. It has moved by leaps and bounds from, you know, way back in 2014 when I started paying attention. So wish you the best of luck and have fun.
I definitely will, and I want to thank you for all of your help too. The debate and the challenge has always been great. It's all about the journey, and I think everyone here can agree that Plymouth is an amazing community, and it's truly been my honor to have worked for this community for this long. So you're thanking me. I'd like to really take the opportunity to thank all of you. It's been one of the best jobs I've ever had.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barry.
One of. Okay, and now the next order of business, the Public Employee Committee, PEC agreement, and I believe we have, do we have Silvio or Derek or who? The man,
We may both
the legend.
handle this one. Do we have a slide deck? So it just, as Anthony pulls that up, we have a PEC agreement that is before you this evening for final ratification. I'm going to spend a few minutes going through the highlights of this agreement and the negotiations. Before I thank everybody, I want to thank Silvio and Brad and Lynn Barrett, our finance director, and Sue Shalou, and the staff over the school department for helping us move this along. And then I think kind of the catalyst behind these negotiations was our chairwoman and our vice chairman who kind of set the stage in the groundwork to work with the unions on what I would argue is probably one of the most successful PEC negotiations in quite some time. And we'll share why we all think it's a successful PEC negotiation. soon as this works. All right, so these are some of the highlights. Silvio, thank you for putting this together. So this is a 6-year agreement. So just to kind of give people a little bit of history, we had 1 year remaining on the existing PEC agreement. And during discussions, we all collectively said, wouldn't it be great to have a 5-year agreement? And then as you'll see with some of the changes, what we realized is that we're going to see some substantial, significant changes, savings on year one. So we decided, let's move our savings into what would ordinarily have been the last year of the existing PEC agreement. So we took that 1 year remaining, bundled that with a 5-year agreement, which is why we came to a 6-year agreement. So you'll see, I'm going to go over the changes in the next 3 years. In the last 3 years, we kept status quo. So in year one, and this was a proposal that actually came from the union, this program called Pillar RX. It's a coupon program that will assist the employee and the retirees with trying to have low-cost options to their prescription meds. So this is a year one implementation program. We're working as we speak on an opt-out policy. So the opt-out policy, in summary, is it gives the ability for existing employees who are a part of our health insurance program, who may have an alternative health insurance program, say with their spouse, to incentivize them to opt out of the town's plan and then give them some type of stipend for opting out. So a family plan is approximately $23,000, $24,000 a year. So if, say we paid out a small sum of money for a person who's on the family plan, we could save anywhere from $18,000 to $20,000, depending on what we finally agree on as far as the opt-out. So there could be significant savings depending on the number of people that enroll in that program. And then another prescription program is a supplemental Medicare Part D program for retirees. That program, along with the other two I just previously mentioned, will all be implemented in year one, which again would have been the final year of the existing PEC agreement. And so we wanted to move these savings up now instead of having to wait 1 year. And so in year two, we have a PPO plan. So any existing employee who is enrolled in the PPO plan, we will go to a 70-30 split in FY25, so which will be year two of this agreement. Currently, that plan is a 75-25 split. In addition to that, any new employee who enrolls in the PPO plan will also participate in a 70-30 split. And then we started to have some plan design changes. They were minor, but they do have some savings associated with those. So we're moving up to $100 on the copay program for ED visits, and then a $300 copay for any inpatient care. I believe that's currently $100, that one there. And then, again, another prescription, this is for the active employees, another plan design change for their prescription plan, which will affect some of their copays. And that's a tiered program. It's very detailed to get into. And then the last year of the agreement is, so this is for all of our employees that are on the HMO plan. We will move to a 70-30 split in FY26. So currently, our HMO plan is a 75-25 split, and we're going to move this to a 70-30 split. And so those are the highlights of what's before you this evening to discuss and to hopefully vote in the affirmative on. I have to say, though, the unions, led by Mr. Pinto and his team of union heads, were very collaborative. They were very engaged. I'm happy to say we didn't have to burn $1 on getting attorneys involved in these negotiations. So I want to thank them for all their hard work in recognizing that this is a cooperative, collaborative type of endeavor, and they recognize that early on, and I think we'll all bear the fruit from those negotiations. Pending any questions, that's all I have for this presentation.
I don't have any questions. I just, a couple of comments, and a colleague to my left reminded me of a story from a few years ago. So,
Is it the time machine?
the PEC agreement from 15 to 18 was relatively simple and straightforward, and comment from a prior colleague was that the cake was baked ahead of time. So, and that may be true, but this one, I mean, I think this agreement here certainly surpasses that agreement. So, full credit to all the individuals involved on the union side and on the select board and town staff, because what they baked here is probably precedent-setting, and, you know, just,
It was a wedding cake.
I was
John.
impressed with the timeliness and how quickly that this progressed and came to be, so hats off to everyone involved.
Yeah, no, I would agree. That was the reason why we all were comfortable with doing a 6-year agreement, because of the substantial benefit to the employees and to our residents and our taxpayers. So, we thought that 6 years was an adequate milestone.
I want to echo what John said. This is a really great example of cooperation, and both the town and the unions getting together for the benefit of the residents and the taxpayers. One question, you may not be able to answer this for those viewing: is there any, not holding anybody to it, but an idea of what savings might accrue? I know that might be difficult, but just to give them some idea, if we have an idea.
Yeah, so it's kind of a ballpark idea, only because it depends on the number of enrollees and, who takes family plan versus the single plan and who opts out and so on and so forth. So, we're thinking that, so over the course of this period of time, over the 6-year period, we're projecting we could save upwards of over $5 million over that 6-year period. And again, this is tiered, so we're going to see some savings in year 1, we're going to see some savings in year 2, and we'll fully realize all those savings in year 3. So those will be compounded over that period of time.
Mr. Quintel?
But on that comment, Derek, it's not $5 million over 6 years. Once you get up to the full implementation in year 3, that's $5 million in savings annually.
I would say it's probably not quite that high.
Okay.
5 million annually. It's probably closer to 3.5.
Oh, okay.
3.5 to 3.8. Again, it just depended on who enrolls into what programs, who enrolls in the PPO program, who enrolls in the HMO program.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to say thank you to all involved, Madam Chair, Derek, town staff, and the local group, the PEC organization, Dale, Tom Pinto, Brian Barawana, the whole gang. And it's nice to see, and I've said it before, when I say things are quiet, and this is a great example, and it leads right back to you also, you and Brad and the staff. Everybody seems to be getting along and getting the job done. I mean, I remember saying at the table, nicely, I work for the taxpayers also. So, and it went, it took a couple, but everything was respectful and went pretty smooth. And I think it's out of the way, and now, you'll have the regular contracts opening up, and this doesn't have to dilute the waters, and it was done. I've been to a few of these, and this is probably the second most, or the first most organized I've ever seen. Everyone act respectable, and it was nice. I'm very proud again. It's really all I can say, and good job to you, too.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I know that we have worked really hard on is trust. And I think we're finally there. I think that we trusted them to know what our circumstances were, and they trusted us to be honest and say, we're not here to hurt you. So one of the things that I know that was really important to Mr. Quintal and myself is the ability to help our retirees. Now, the first thing is that if people will recognize is that there is something that will be put on our tax bills that people can donate to our senior population. And another thing, Derek, I don't know if you could touch on it, just because I know there's messages coming in that are retirees. So if you could just touch on the other program that we're working on that I think will kind of help them relax a little bit about it.
Yeah, no, I'd love to talk about that program. So, you know, I think I'd start by saying that in my first year, I did as much as I could to try to meet agencies, committees, individuals where they're at. And I spent a lot of time going to PRIA meetings. And Silvio and Lynn Barrett and we went to a PRIA meeting, and we spent a lot of time listening to the retiree's story and their sometimes inability to pay for basic prescription drugs, and how the previous PEC agreement just took a toll on their personal finances. And we didn't make any promises coming out of the meeting, but we took away, and we really understood the struggles that they were going through. And so three of us drove back to Town Hall, and we started brainstorming, what can we do for the retirees? And what we came up with was a program that we hope will be successful. Now, I don't know a community that's done this, but what we want to do, we want to have it be implemented effective July 1st, is a program where all of our active employees and retirees who want to participate as well can donate a sum of money. So I use, for an example, an individual can sign up into this program and donate $1 per week, an active employee like myself, $1 per week into this fund. And so we did quick back of the napkin math, and if 75% of our school and town employees participate in this, we think we could generate $1 per week, upwards of $50,000 per year in this special emergency fund just for retirees. And the PRIA board would manage these dollars. It'd still be, you know, we would still hold the account. And then individuals, retirees who had a significant need, a medical need, could apply for a sum of money to come from this emergency fund. So if an individual needed $800 to help pay for a prescription drug that was very expensive, they could apply to PRIA, and PRIA would vet that person and then would approve, and then let us know that person has been approved for a sum of money. So we're going to work with PRIA over the next month or so to finalize that policy and have it implemented by July 1st. So when we presented this back to the folks at PRIA, Susan Page and her team, they seem very interested in this because they, again, getting back to your point, it was all about trust. And they knew that we were doing everything in our power to help them as much as we possibly can. So more to come on that program, but we're hoping this is just kind of one of many programs that we can roll out in future years.
So I just want to say this, and I'm not saying it to try to embarrass you or anything, but, you know, yourself and Brad and Silvio and some of our new staff members, you've just made just a huge difference with the morale in our employees. And I think this board recognizes that. And just to say thank you, and please keep up the good work, because it's important. Bad morale costs us money, and we don't need any more of it. We had plenty of it. So the differences have shown employees are happy, basically happy. There are some that are never happy, but but I mean, it's a huge difference. And I think, you know, I have no problem on behalf of the board commending you all for it, because it has made a big difference. So thank you.
Absolutely. I think a little bit of creativity and a little bit of communication, we can go a long way.
Right. Great. Oh, Silvio?
Sylvia Janelle, Human Resources Director. I just want to echo what everybody said already, but again, thank you for all the groups who are involved in this, active employee unions and the retirees, because I just wanted to share this anecdote. When I first started here and working in this agreement, one of the things that I've always heard was the retirees always voted no on the PEC. So one of the things that I'm most proud of was the fact that the retirees voted for this PEC, that, like everybody's saying, we were able to work together as a team, earn that trust, and hopefully that'll help us continue to improve benefits for our employees and our retirees, because we have plenty of ideas that we're going to be working with our Insurance Advisory Committee in the future. So, and I also want to make sure that I also thank the benefits administrator here for the town and for the schools, who have the arduous work of implementing this in the next couple of months. So thank you to Jackie Gurney and Teresa Sears at the school side, because we're going to have our open enrollment in May. In our fairs, I think our open enrollment fair is going to be, we're still working on the date, but it's going to be the first or second Tuesday in May. So all of these things are happening in sequence. And again, thank you to the board for helping with this, because now that we have the agreement, we can move forward with the implementation. So thank you, everybody who was involved with this.
Great. And thank you. Harry?
I'd like to move that we approve the Public Employee Committee agreement as negotiated.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Mr. Helm, seconded from Mr. Blitzer. Discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Congratulations, everybody. Job well done. Okay, the next is our town manager's report.
All right, I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking this evening. All right, so I wanted to start with talking about the sewer interceptor project. So as you know, we had some settlement on March 7th, which Mr. Brothers had reported on, I have reported on since. The construction of that project ceased on that date. It still has not resumed. Our engineers continue to work with Northern Contracting, their engineers, to try to identify a way forward. They have recently sunk wells along Water Street to try to monitor the groundwater levels, so that they can get the groundwater levels to a safe level where they can restart construction. We're not there yet. We don't expect to restart construction for at least another week as we monitor these wells. We have committed to working with the business owners and the property owners on Water Street. We will not resume construction without having conversations with those property owners first, so that they know what the plan forward is. But at this time, no work will continue until we can get the groundwater to a point where we feel it's safe, that there will not be any future settlement. So there's more to come on the sewer interceptor project. Moving on, the DPW has moved very quickly, you may have noticed, on Court Street, starting to install the parklets. We have 9 restaurants who have asked to do the outdoor dining in the parklet, so we're expecting those to be completed tomorrow or Thursday at the latest, just in time for 80-degree weather on Friday. We're nearing completion of the flood wall project down at the pump station. You may notice that the stone facade is now almost complete. We're expecting full completion of that project within the next couple of weeks. Some of you may have received this little yellow card. This is the yellow card we've talked about in the past. This is the community survey. The Plymouth Senior Task Force has distributed these to our residents. This is encouraging folks to take the survey. There's a QR code. You can go directly to the survey, or you can always send in a mail-in survey as well. And that'll help inform the CAL and the task force on becoming an age and dementia-friendly community. Moving to White Horse Beach, we have the bid out for parking enforcement, so we're expecting to open bids on May 12th, just in time for Memorial Day. I wanted to bring up that I may have mentioned in the past, I've advocated with the board's support, working through town council, working with Rep. Muratori in particular, on trying to get a seat at the sampling table with Holtec. It took a lot of work. I know Selectman Mahoney was also talking to folks to try to get Holtec to commit to allowing us to witness the sampling. So we've completed that. David Gould, last Wednesday, attended in concert with Mass Department of Public Health, Mass Department of Environmental Protection, on witnessing the sampling at the Taurus and the spent fuel pools. He has reported that they kept the samples in their line of sight the entire time, and things went extremely well. So he's confident that there'd be no tampering with those samples. Hazardous Waste Day was last Saturday. 225 vehicles attended, and the Mosquito Control Project was there as well, where they picked up 275 vehicle tires. Why is that important? Because one of the primary mosquito breeding areas are in discarded tires. And so, as you know, mosquitoes are a vector for diseases like West Nile virus and Triple E. So removing 275 tires from our community, I think will help mitigate the proliferation of mosquitoes. I talked about, we're going to do a presentation, I think in May 6th, I think we're aiming for, on some of our technology upgrades. So we've talked about the new website, the new 311 program, and OpenGov, which is our online permitting system. So we're going to do a presentation in a few weeks so you can kind of see in real time all of those new portals. But I wanted you to know that most recently, the fire department has enrolled in OpenGov. So now we have our inspection services department and now fire enrolled in OpenGov. The Symes House IRFP is due on April 28th, so we'll report back on any prospective winning bidders on Symes House. And then I think at least the chair will be happy to hear that we're going to start doing on May 15th in-house beach stickers again. So ask and you shall receive. So I just want, I know I kind of half joking on that, but you know, I say to staff on a regular basis that we are working in the most difficult era. I mean, this is what I mean. So you have a population of people that only like to do things face to face, right? And then you have another population of people that don't even want to talk to anybody. It's like my son, for example. I gave him a $20 bill to go fill up his gas tank, and he didn't know what to do with the $20 bill because he's used to using some plastic device to pay for gas. So we have to be nimble and flexible on our end to realize that we have two different populations we're trying to serve, those who want to do things still in person and those who want to do things online. In 30 years from now, we probably don't have to worry about doing things in person because mostly everything will be online. And the beach stickers is just another example. You know, there was an idea to move beach stickers just online, and what we realized over time is that there's a population that still want to come in and get their beach sticker in hand. And so we're trying to be responsive to everyone's needs in the community. So be patient. We'll continue to make progress in the areas that we can. And then last, I want to just raise the issue of what normally we would say is poor lighting over here on South Russell Street. This was a complaint that was brought forward. Folks in the planning department took a look at that under Lee Hartman's watch, and just this past week, we now have 3 additional streetlights on South Russell to brighten it up. Especially when you look behind the Gunther Tooties area, it's always very, very dark. So trying to make it a little bit safe. We've heard from merchants and restaurant owners that their employees won't park on South Russell just because they don't want to walk up South Russell because it was so dark. So hopefully, with this new lighting, we'll advance some public safety issues. So pending any questions, that's all I have for this evening.
Charlie?
I got two questions, Derek. First of all, what kind of car does your son drive that $20 fills it up? I want to get that, I want to get that.
Yeah, and give us the money. We'll
I'd
explain-
say it was
we
a
may
Prius, but
explain
I'd be
to him.
lying.
The outdoor dining, I notice there's not many, how many, 9?
9 of them, yes.
So if they don't get the parklets, does that mean there's no sidewalk tables, right? You have to have a parklet to have outdoor dining?
That's a great question. So Mr. Brothers is actually working on it. We're thinking maybe next week or the week after, we're going to bring to the board a recommendation, because what we're starting to see is that some restaurants want to go back to the pre-COVID days where there was just sidewalk dining. There's a couple restaurants have expressed that interest, but we don't have a fee for that. And then there's other restaurants or food establishments that they don't really have dining, but they put tables and chairs in the public way for takeout purposes. So Mr. Brothers is working on a fee structure that is appropriate for the takeout tables and chairs and for table-side dining on the sidewalk. So we'll have basically a 3-tiered structure, one for parklets, which you've already approved at $2,500 a year, one for table-side dining, so those restaurants that just want to put a couple tables and chairs and serve their food and drinks, like alcohol, on the sidewalk, and then just a third lower tier for folks that just want to have something more as a place for people to sit and eat and take out sandwich or a drink or something.
I think we have to be real careful, because the reason for the parklets was to make it uniformed and, make it all look good, and also keep the sidewalks open. So we got to be real careful allowing sidewalk tables.
I mean, certainly we'll defer to the board, whatever the board decides you want to do. If you want to keep the sidewalks open, I just would be mindful, we have restaurants using the sidewalks for different purposes, so.
No, I understand a couple tables for takeout. I get that. I don't even care if there's a fee for that. But the ones that want to put tables, they don't want a parklet because they don't want to pay a fee. I don't think that's right. I think we should just put them in the parklets and pay whatever the fee is. The fee is very reasonable for what you get, I believe, so. But we just got to be careful, because it got out of control there. It was unorganized, it looked lousy, and the whole purpose of this parklet program with the flowers is just to make it look nice, make our downtown area look nice. So I don't want to take a step back because some people feel they don't want to pay a fee, and they're just going to throw tables out there, because it'll get out of control, believe me. So anyway, thank you.
Helm.
On that subject, I agree with Mr. Bletzer. The reason for what we did, the Outdoor Dining Committee, was to create an environment that was, respectable. And we did very successfully. We were even in the Boston papers for having navigated this correctly and come up with a very beautiful, uniform concept. One of the main underlying concepts with that, when people were doing this willy-nilly, they were not observing ADA compliance.
Right.
Okay, they were putting umbrellas up at 4 feet. It was all over the place. So if you're gonna go ahead, remember that. You gotta have a certain amount of space for people to travel. It can't be a serpentine through their property. It has to be a straight line, et cetera. So just giving you a heads up on that.
Yeah, no, that's.
One last thing, too, I'm sorry. Before COVID, we didn't have tables on the sidewalks. There was no outdoor dining in the downtown, except San Diego's had an outdoor area, but that was already part of their lease. It was closed in, it was on their property. So we didn't have tables on the sidewalk before that.
This idea came in response to restaurants that didn't feel the need to have this large parklet in front of their restaurant, but rather wanted to put a couple tables and chairs on the sidewalk. And I agree, it's got to be accessible. This is why there'd be a fee associated, because we have to send folks out there to do the inspection. But at the end of the day, if the board wants to prohibit all tables and chairs on the sidewalks, we're happy to enforce that regulation. We have no problem with that. But we just need to be, we have to be able to respond to those restaurants who are seeking tables and chairs on the sidewalk. And if the answer is the board's prohibiting that, then that's the answer.
Great. Now, did you have something? No? Mr. Helm?
On a different subject, it's, you know, as you're aware, it's come to our attention that we have approximately a dozen video units around town that are capable of storing video for 10 days. These were put up by the DPW, and they're monitoring intersections and things like that. But we've become aware that a policy set by the previous town manager has prohibited the DPW sharing that video information with the police department. I'll leave my editorial opinion on that alone and just ask, do you have an update on this situation?
Yes, I do. So it was brought to the police department's attention at a meeting last week, so we have this graffiti task force now that the board had asked for. And at that meeting, it was learned by the police department that we have 11 cameras at 11 different intersections. And the DPW representative had said that they were directed not to share that information with the police department. So when we look at the number of man-hours that could have been lost, say that there was like a 2-car vehicle accident and have to reconstruct that accident without having that footage, we've realized that there's a more efficient way of doing business. And so we are meeting with the DPW, a meeting with the chief, and there's going to be a training to be able to allow the police department to have access to that footage when necessary.
So basically, you've rescinded that order.
Yes, we
Thank
have
you.
rescinded that order.
Sometimes you just have to shake your head and say nothing.
I know it's hard for you.
It is hard. It really is hard for me. Mr. Mahoney?
So I just wanted to follow up on one thing from town meeting, and the individual to my left has more experience than I do, and when I first got elected to the board, one of the other senior members of the board would tell a story about the sustainability of enterprise funds. And I've mentioned this before, but the gold standard back then was the Airport Enterprise Fund. So I was caught off guard. I attended a fair amount of the caucuses, probably 50 to 80%. And to hear how there was some level of consternation among certain town meeting members that the Airport Enterprise Fund was not completely sustainable. There was the number being bandied about was 450 to 460,000 general fund subsidy. So I thought that when I first got on the board and Mr. Quinta was there, we put together a 3-year plan based on what we were told that the gold standard had been set a decade or two before by the Airport Commission. Solid waste, water, and sewer, the last time they got a general fund subsidy was FY12, so we're going almost 12 fiscal years ago. Okay, so I was happy to see the finance director get up and say that last year, or the fiscal year we're currently in, there was a $240,000 subsidy. Town meeting just signed off on an $80,000 subsidy for FY24, and the intent is to come back a year from now for FY25 and look for 0. So I'm hoping that makes everybody happy, because I think that the Airport Commission and that enterprise fund took some unnecessary hits. I think Mr. Marr was out there for almost 30 years. They do a phenomenal job, in my opinion. Obviously, when they go to invest in infrastructure, 90%, I believe, comes from the feds, 5% comes from the Commonwealth, and I think, typically, that enterprise fund is coming up with our 5% match locally. So that was my little editorial on town meeting. Thank you.
Just, John, I believe an enterprise fund should sustain itself with no general fund. So.
We're 15 months away.
We should have never gone there, but that's okay. Like I said, sometimes I just have to shake my head and say nothing.
Betty? Madam Chair? Can you put your mic on? Thank you.
Well, maybe I shouldn't be saying anything. So that was a little bit of the town managers and the select board open discussion. I do have something for new business, old business. The signage and bathrooms for White Horse Beach. The bathrooms are to be placed May 1st. The porta trailer thing there. And I do believe that we should have some signage up there to let people know that the fines are now $100. So if we could get those made as well.
Happy to do all that. We actually, I don't know if I mentioned this, but we are meeting the end of this month with all of the permanent departments to have what is titled a summer preparedness meeting, bringing fire, police, DPW, and natural resources all in the room to check off all those boxes. So when the summer hits, we go. And it's interesting because I asked the question when I was at a meeting last week, recreation director, when did you guys normally have this meeting? Was it in April? Was it in May? And she said never. So we're going to do that so we're all on the same page and everybody knows exactly what has to get done. So we're ready for Memorial Day.
Oh, and one more thing, we don't need 300 barrels on White Horse Beach, if you don't mind. So, anything else? Anybody? Mr. Quintel.
Thank you. You heard on the street this week, and it could be old news, new news, could be just hearsay, right, exactly. But the Benny's parcel is for sale. And I think, has the town looked at that at all in any way? Because if the wrong thing goes there, it could be detrimental to the town. I mean, really, that's the gateway to the waterfront. And there's so many uses that this town could use that parcel. How do you say it, John? 20 years from now? No. But, I mean, whether it's, just something to look at, I don't know nothing about price, but foundation, CPC, the town itself, we have to start looking at stuff, especially a parcel like that. That's right next to the waterfront, that would alleviate a lot of the parking issues for the future. We know the executive sessions we had, we had a lot of conversation about parking.
So this is the
I don't know who to
Pioppi's
direct
parking
that
lot?
to. Well, the Benny's whole,
That whole plaza is
Everything.
for sale? Oh,
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
and so I think it's, we need to look at it, and if we can't, we can't, but at least we gave it a shot. I won't forget, we lost the one on Nelson Street there, right in front of Nelson Park, because we thought $200,000 was a little too much money. And it wasn't. We lost that parcel, so. The second thing, speaking of parcels, is I'm hearing Sacred Heart is sold or under agreement soon to sell their property. But naturally, that's in Kingston, but the location of that piece of property abuts West Plymouth hard, like right there. So I think we should reach out to Kingston, or if Kingston's interested in working together, to see if there's something we can do with that parcel. And, I'm not gonna say a cemetery, because that's what happened with my Sandwich Road. They took that and they ran with it. But there might be something, even if it's just preservation, I don't know.
That parcel's under agreement right now.
Right, but I don't think it's got all the teeth yet, so,
Right. They're proposing, I want to say it's around 100 units to development in that.
But
I only
that's-
know that because they asked if they could tie into our water system.
and I hope you said no.
I wouldn't say
You
anything
need a
else.
vote? When I said work with them, it wasn't for that. That's the exact opposite. I'm just very worried about the expense it would have on our town's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, I did talk to the town manager in Kingston about that parcel, and I did mention to him that the developer came forward and presented to Lee Hartman and myself this proposal, and they wanted to tie into our water system, and I explained to them what's going on with our water system, and that there was almost a 0% probability that the select board would agree to tie into that water system. I explained that to the town manager, so I haven't talked to him since, so I don't know where that project is going. They do have the ability to sink a well, though, on that property.
Oh, it's
That I do
huge,
know.
that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I say cemetery only because a mixed use, a county use, maybe the county could get access to funds with the state and make it for the county. I mean, ain't, you know, then crazy housing everywhere. I mean, we need housing, I know that. But I think what we're putting in that whole corner of the woods, whether it's Plymouth or Kingston, is just way out of control.
Right.
I mean, you know, and I think and I'm glad you had a conversation, and I think we need to have more with our neighbors and work together to see if we can both find something that's halfway good for everybody. And then the last thing, and I didn't hear this one, and nobody's approached me, but if we were to lose a town planner in our town, which would be Mr. Hartman, there's been things that, you know, and he hasn't said it to me, but, you know, I've been hearing little things, he's gonna retire. The thing that worries me is, you know, if Lee does retire, and it's his right, I mean, where do we get the replacement? There's
Right.
nobody, I don't think, under him. And I think, you know, we need to look and bring somebody in a year in advance to work side of him and to know the ins and outs of this town, because this is a big one. And before we had like Jack Lennox, I think it was Lee was under Jack, right? I believe so, yes. Yeah, and I've never really searched for a town manager, so, and, you know, I know,
Yeah, town planner.
town planner, I'm sorry.
You search for plenty town
No,
managers.
yeah, I have. I said it wrong. Thank you. So, I mean, you know, he didn't say it, and I don't want to put it out there. I know he's thinking about it. And I think we need to address that and have the money set aside, or you need to have the money set aside. So whatever the search is, it happens, and when he's ready, the town will be ready, because that's one we can't just let go by the wayside. That's,
Yeah, I mean, if I could respond to that, I agree. The town in the next, I would say, 2 to 4 years is going to potentially see some significant institutional knowledge leave. And you look at the experience with former Chief Bradley and having to get special legislation to keep him here an additional 2 years just for that. And we should have started planning for that earlier on. And we are happy to set up a succession plan because, you know, you talk about Lee Hartman and his 25-plus years of service to the town, and, you know, other department heads. We just lost Barry de Blasio, 20-plus years of service to the town. So we're going to continue to see that turnover in the next couple of years. So I agree. I think we need to have a solid succession plan in place. But that's going to cost money.
Yep. And that's why I'm bringing it up. Sometimes, you know, it can cost us a lot more money if
Right.
mistakes are made, so, you know, you get what you pay for,
Agreed.
you know? And the last thing was, you know, just to touch off, and I'm waiting to see how the DPW rolls out and what happens there. And we always had an assistant DPW director. And I think I hope that in the next succession plan or whatever's gonna happen over there with the new director, that there's an assistant, and that in the case we lose the director, the assistant could step in place. I mean, the town's like way too big not to.
We are hoping in the next 2 weeks, we will have some announcements for DPW and community resources and other places that we need to fill vacancies. I mean, I can tell you one thing right now, is Sheila Scarzy, who's our acting DPW director, is doing a phenomenal job, but she's wearing multiple hats. She's
Right.
wearing the DPW director hat, the assistant DPW director hat. James Downey has now filled the role as the acting town engineer, so, you know, they are all trying to do the best that they can. So we recognize that, and we know that we need to start filling some of those vacancies as soon as possible. So we're working on it.
Well, I don't want to sound like I'm telling you how to do your job. I'm just put my 2 cents in for, I
No, that's
think.
when I go home.
No, I don't bother you
That'll happen
with
when I get
that.
home.
Thank you.
Eric?
Yeah, I just want to kind of follow up and add something to Mr. Quintal's noting of the Thorndike project at Sacred Heart. The amount of traffic that will increase will be on the roads of Plymouth. They're not heading to Kingston. Maybe they will, every once in a while, to go pay their bills at Town Hall. But all the shops, the access to the expressways, everything is through Plymouth. Do they have any plans to, number one, improve that intersection, which is a nasty intersection to begin with, but also aid in whatever is needed because of the additional traffic on our roads, sidewalks, things like that? I mean, yes, we do gain from the traffic to our businesses and our stores, but we have the additional costs involved in all of that traffic basically being over Plymouth roads. You know, I mean, I don't want to disparage Kingston, it's certainly lovely, but there's not a lot of reason to go there when you've got Colony Place down the street and the access to the expressways. That'll be the major traffic.
Yeah, it's a point well taken, and those conversations haven't taken place. I mean, as you know, Selectman Helm, they're going to go through their typical planning board process, their ZBA process, and not come through our process, where normally we would be having those conversations. We'd be talking about traffic mitigation and pedestrian improvements in that area. And unfortunately, I don't think their ZBA or the Kingston Planning Board is considering our needs, but, you know,
So
we
when
certainly
they
can have those
came
conversations.
to ask us for access to our water, they didn't come with anything like, you know what, we understand the impact of this development on Plymouth, and we would like to discuss how we can help mitigate that impact, or they just came and asked for water?
They talked about mitigation dollars for water, but
For
not
water,
for anything
but
else.
nothing about, no acknowledgement of any other aspects of reality of that development.
Just water mitigation dollars.
Yeah, well, great.
Anyone else? Well, I know there's a woman that would like to say something. She came in a little late, if you don't, no problem.
For whatever reason, I had it in my mind that you started at 7. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to briefly.
Can you please state
come
your name?
And make sure, oh, yes. Jerry Duncombe, District 3, yeah. And a resident here on Seaver Street in Plymouth, right up the street. So I wanted to come and briefly talk about the Allerton and Seaver Street Park that we've talked about here before with many more people in the room. I know a decision was made to invest money to replace the fence and install a new park. And they've done some of that work, and I'm sure they're going to be completing it this spring. I know that the park right now, according to the signage that was put up, has been planned for the northeast corner of the park, to put it up at the northeast corner. The playground. Right, the playground. And so my concern with that is, having lived here for 25 years now, that end of the park has had sinkholes for 25 years. There have been at least 12 of them. There was one just last winter that was at least 4 feet deep, I would say, probably 5 feet long, 2 or 3 feet wide. And so to put that playground equipment on that end of the park worries me. I think we're going to make an investment that isn't going to make a lot of sense, because if it caves out underneath and you've put a nice ground down, that's a lot of work to pick up the park and, you know, fix it, and then you're going to have another sinkhole, because apparently when they filled that reservoir in, they just threw in branches and I don't want to, yeah, all kinds of stuff got thrown in. There are air pockets. So I was just asking that it be considered to move it to the other end of the park where it originally was. And also, I know the number one time of day that that playground was always used was when the kids are waiting for the school bus, and the bus stop is at the other end of the park. So I think it just makes a lot of sense to consider that location, because the last thing we want to do after everything else that's gone on is put a beautiful playground in there and then have a problem with it and have to put up yellow tape and nobody can play with it for a year, you know? So that's it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Could you take a look at that, Derek? Thank you. All right, anybody else with anything? Then I look for a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, everyone.